Hello, everybody out in podcast land. This is Mr. Wills.
And this is Brittany.
And this is Signals from Pittsburgh. Today, we have a very special guest, a good friend of mine and a friend of the show. Mr. Jason Baker is joining us today. Hello, Mr. Baker. How are you?
Good, guys. How are you doing?
Absolutely
Doing well.
Wonderful.
I want to thank you for coming on the show because I know you have a busy-ass schedule. I'm starting a new company, working for WWE, working along Tom Savini still, coming up with new things. It's like you have your fingers in many pies. So I really do appreciate you taking time at this late hour to come on here and give us a little chat today.
Yeah, man. Absolutely, guys. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Of course.
So starting out, I wanted to get into how I met you, how you and I met initially, and talk about that. And then we'll get into kind of what you're doing now and where we're laying in 2020 with all this craziness going on and kind of the projects you're into, and tell us about the studio you started that, spoiler alert, you hired me to help you with. And I really appreciate it because you gave me a job when I was laid off. And but we'll have Britt talk to you about that because I might be a little bit biased.
Well, how did we meet? Did we meet at Half Price Books or was it through Dom?
I think we initially met. The first time I remember seeing you was I was working for, at the time, Living Dead Weekend.
This is how we fell in love, Britt. Take notes. How the romance started.
It was. Because I was actually looking at pictures today from a couple years ago of, it was you, me, and your wife, Mandy. Or you, me, you, and your wife, Mandy.
And your wife, Mandy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No. She's like my sister. We talk about that all the time. It's like Mandy and I are like dumb in the same way, and I mean that with all due love. It's just like we have the same brain farts. I'm like, we have to be like separated at birth or adopted, and we both love Jason, so it's like this has to be like we have to be cousins at least or something. But
She's the She-Ra to your He-Man?
What's that?
She's the She-Ra to your He-Man?
she's like, yeah, she's like
She's the bumbling She-Ra to your...
The bumbling. Can you give us a little your Skeletor impression?
No, I really can't. I don't know. Not Skeletor. I could do the... I mean, I used to be able to do a pretty nasty Cobra Commander, but that was way back in the day.
That was
too late in the night for that, so...
That was before, that was before you were working 28 hours a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember seeing you at Living Dead Weekend, and you were with Tom Savini, for those of you who aren't paying attention. And I was like, is that Tom's, like, one? I thought you were one of Tom's sons, or I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I get that a lot. It's either Tom's son or his gay lover. And you know, like people that I'm like, no, Tom is as straight as they come. And I hope I'm not a son because that would be very weird because I did not grow up in Pittsburgh. So Mom would have a lot of experience.
Long lost.
Yeah.
She saw Tom Savini in concert one night and got backstage.
Yeah.
Who knows? You know,
it's either Tom or Gene Simmons. One of them is my. No, I'm just kidding.
Either way, you may be owed a lot of inheritance there.
Yeah.
So. But no, I just that's how I initially remember us meeting, and then I just asked everybody who you were. And the funniest thing about it is, I asked the show promoters, I asked, a lot, like my buddy Larry who works there. Nobody knew who you were. I was like, you guys know everything. I'm like, if I have a George A. Romero question or a question about anything, I ask Larry or I ask Daz or any of those guys, and they know, and nobody knew who you were, which is, their canned response was, oh, he came with Tom. I'm like, I see him, and this was like, I had seen you for multiple shows. Yeah. They're like, almost like they were afraid to like approach you. They're like, we don't know. He came with Tom. I was like,
that's another one I've gotten.
We don't ask questions.
I'm a little bit of a heftier guy, a little broad-shouldered, so I think I fall into that bouncer bodyguard stereotype a lot. Like, I'm like, even though in real life I'm like the biggest pussy on the planet.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I would say you give off the demeanor of don't fuck with me, and like
so a lot of people are like, man, Tom hired muscle.
So
hang out, man. That's that's it. So
because had known Tom from shows too, but I think it was pretty cool once we started talking. It was like, oh yeah, this guy's cool as shit and down to earth. So that's how I remember meeting you. Maybe on your side, you're like, I don't know, you were just some weird guy that walked up, and I was like, what the fuck? So, but yeah, what's your side of it?
I mean, back to working with Tom, I really had no intentions of ever working with and for Tom. I never thought that when I moved out here to go to a school that was going to be even an option. You know, my plan was to move out here, go through the Savini program, and then move to LA, and then just be a shop jockey for the rest of my life. Just, you know, work at FX shop and just because that's what, you know, so many people do is because every job is only, you know, every gig is part-time. So, you know, like I know so many friends that it's like, oh, I'm working for Stan Winston for 6 weeks, and then hopefully I can get on this. And then I found out that K&B might be doing a new TV show, so maybe I can go over there and work for them for a month, or, you know, and then I'm going to go work for, you know, Alec Guinness and these guys over at this shop. So you just kind of like, everybody I know bounces around from studio to studio to studio. So that was kind of my initial plan, was just do that, was to just kind of go to LA and be a shop jockey. And just out of weird circumstances and things happening, that didn't pan out. So
Life took you on a different ride.
yeah, it kind of did. I graduated from school, went through Tom's program, had no money to move, and they had just started the film program, the George A. Romero film program at Douglas. And I was like, wow, I have no money. You know what I should do? Get into more debt. That sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. So I ended up signing up for the film program and went through that, and ended up staying around working on Batman and a bunch of other, or Dark Knight Rises and a bunch of other films for about a year here in Pittsburgh. And then I just kind of got bored and some other stuff happened. I just wanted to move away, kind of get a fresh start, and moved to Phoenix for a while, worked on some TV shows there. Ended up getting a job offer to come back to West Virginia and work for MTV on this TV show called Buck Wild. And I got hired as their art director for the first season. And then I went back to do the second season, and I was like, okay, well then, you know, I got a pay raise. I can finish this. I'll do the second season, and then I'll move to LA with all the money I'm going to save up, because they were going to put me in a hotel and pay for me. So it's kind of almost like being in the military, where, you know, your paychecks are almost like 100% take home. And after I was there 3 days, less than a week, and our original cast member accidentally killed himself. Shane Gandy got drunk one night and went driving out with his uncle and his cousin, and decided to go tear it up in the mud, and got their car stuck and left it running. So, and they accidentally killed themselves through carbon monoxide poisoning. So overnight I was jobless and homeless.
Yeah, that's awful.
That's a horrible turn of events.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it felt horrible. Shane, you know, I just spent 9 months of the previous year, 6 days a week, every day with this kid. So it was really heartbreaking. It was really sad. He was really sweet, wonderful, down to earth, and he was a kid. He was like literally 21 years old.
Jeez,
that's wild.
Yeah, it was nuts. So I ended up calling Andy, the guy, Andy Westfall, that works. Shout out to Andy, who works at our shop with us Mondays through Tuesdays. And he's my part-time lover Wednesdays through Saturday.
Andy is a lovely human being. He was a line producer on the one show they worked on, Feast of the Seven Fishes. And Andy knows a lot about film, and he's not pretentious. He's like a wealth of knowledge, but you can ask him any question and he'll give you his honest opinion, but without making you feel stupid or inferior. I've asked him quite a bit, and he's like, oh, yeah, this is how you do this. He's a good teacher.
He's a fucking genius. And he's one of those people that once you have him on your side, you know everything's going to be okay when it comes to like production. Andy's been my producer on everything I've ever directed, because I'm like, anytime I get a job, I'm just like, Andy, I need your help. Babysit me. So, but no, yeah. So I ended up moving back in with Andy up here, renting a room from him, and I ran into Tom. Tom was like, I need some help with some stuff. And I thought it was going to be like a 1-2 day gig. And it's now 7 years later. So
getting into the jobs you've done for Tom and getting into the George J. Romero film program that you entered into. Were you in the first class? I know because they had just launched it, right?
I was like the third or fourth or something. Yeah, like I think it was still definitely in its infancy. It wasn't even called the George Romero Film Program.
But he did come to the school and speak, I believe. Were you close with George?
I mean, I don't want to say close. I mean, because especially like, when I know people like Greg and Tom and, Marty Schiff and all these people who like, they were legitimately close with George.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I knew George and he'd recognize me. And no, every time I'd see George, we'd talk, we'd shoot the shit. A lot of mutual friends. I was always kind of the like mediator. When George started getting involved with the school, I was working a lot with the Misfits. Of course, Jerry and Doyle had a history with George from doing the Scream video and everything. So it was always like, I'd see George and tell him that, Jerry and Doyle said hi. And then anytime I'd see Doyle and Jerry, I'd be like, George said hi. So, and then, we'd be like in the room with each other and I'd throw them on the phone with each other, stuff like that. And then just getting to know George through Tom and with Tom and everything. And, getting to meet Suze, who's just an absolutely lovely woman. I love Suze.
Yeah, we love Suze too.
Getting to know Tina, George's daughter, with we did a project together a few years ago called Flicker with George's school. They called me back and I was Tina's AD and did some acting in it, and Tom directed an episode, and that was a blast. So it's just been, like I can't say that I don't want to sit here and be like, oh yeah, George and I were like best friends or anything, because we were,
But you had a relation. It sounds like you had a good working relationship with them and like a personal relationship.
It was more, I'm like, yeah, it was sort of, I mean, friend of a friend, definitely, I'm like, and that's the thing, I mean, compared to like him and Tom, I'm like, I'm not even a fucking speck on the radar.
Well, they had a lifetime together, but I think what I really liked when I first met you, and still to this day, is you're very affable. If you like somebody, you'll bust their balls, but you can tell, and then I can tell when you don't like some. You're not in a guarded, maybe in a bit of a guarded way, because honestly, in this industry, so many people are just like, and that's when I initially met you too. It's like I know so many people are like use Tom or anybody famous they can get as a gateway, and I don't ever want to come off like that. Like when I meet famous people, and if it's just for that, like, oh, I just want you to sign this, or I just want to talk about that, but I didn't feel that way with you. I was like, I could get along with this guy. This guy's cool as fuck. But and that was very important. That's cognizant. And I think maybe is that kind of the same way you feel? It's like you don't want to say, oh, I was his friend, or overstep, because I'm very trying to be cautious with that too, because certain people will be like, oh, then you can talk to Tom about this, or you can get me to this. And I think it's kind of a negative about being so close to celebrities sometimes, is people kind of step over the line. And I try to be cognizant of not doing that. And it sounds like you were too.
I mean, you kind of, I don't know, man. I think it's a respect thing. I think it's just sort of a coup thing, I guess, like, it's a weird thing, because it's, at the end of the day, it is a job, and you want to stay professional. At least I try to stay professional. I mean, I like to have fun, especially clients, like I've been so grateful and lucky to have a few clients that have turned into really good friends. And so, it's like we get to crack jokes and I get to, joke around with them and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they are clients. They are, it is a professional setting. So, I don't ever want anybody to ever feel like I'm taking advantage of them, nor do I ever want to feel like anybody's taking advantage of me. That's just not how life should be. You should want to be around people because you enjoy their company, not because of how many Instagram followers they have or how many movies they've been in. You should just enjoy their company. Like, dude, I love Tom. If Tom wasn't who Tom was and I'd met him and he was still the same person, I would hang out with him. Like, I would still like, he's just so wonderful and down to earth. And I think a lot of times I forget that yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's fucking Tom Savini.
Well, going from that's a good segue into the next question I was going to ask you about how Smoke and Mirrors came to be, because that's what I really loved about your documentary. For those of you who don't know, get with it, and we'll put a link up in the show notes here. But Jason directed a very extensive documentary on Tom Savini, and we've seen, you know, videos and docs in the past, like chronicling what kind of special effects and what kind of movies he's worked on. But this was one of the most personal. I'd never seen Tom Savini in this light before. I had known a little bit of this side of him just from becoming a show friend through the years, but Jason, like, you really shined a light and you really did a great job chronicling what it was like to not only be his friend, but to see the world kind of through his eyes, and showed a whole new side. Would you like to talk about how that came to be?
Yeah. What I mean, I tell everybody what it was when I first came to the school, and I'd see stuff online about how Tom was such a dick. Or like, I hear people be like, "Oh, I met Tom at a convention. He was a fucking asshole. He, barely talked to me," or or, "Oh, I came to Tom's school and he never like talks to me," and I'm like, "Wow, that's," and I'm like, I hadn't even met him yet, and like, this is the stuff I'm hearing from people, and I'm like, well, that sucks. That's too bad. And then I met him, and I'm like, wait, this guy? Like, they think this guy's a dick. And then Tom hired me to do special effects for his short film called The Wrong House. And we went and stayed in Deep Creek, Maryland for like 4 days. And like, I was still in school and everything when we did it. And just the way that Tom treated everyone on the set, like, we were a bunch of students, and Tom could have flicked cigarette butts at us and we would have just been like, "Sure thing, sir, we'll get that right away." And he treated all of us like we were professionals, like that we were like 15-year veterans. And just the way I saw him talk to everybody around him, and he was so kind and compassionate to everybody. And and his grandson James was acting in it at the time, and just saw how he worked, how much he loved James, and of course, and then James's daughter, or James's mom Leah, was there, and just seeing how he interacted with his daughter and everything. So that was just, I was like, man, this guy's fucking amazing. Like, he's so sweet and so kind. And one of the other kickers too was the whole film takes place at night, so we did night shoots. And Tom and I were the only two people that couldn't fall asleep, so we'd be up at like noon. Everybody else like would be dead out, crashed out. And we'd be up just kind of shooting the shit. And Tom would tell me these amazing stories about life and Vietnam and everything. And we wrapped the film, and for like weeks, I just couldn't stop thinking about how I'm like, this guy has never really had his opportunity to tell a story to the world. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions here that, I think would be really good to get rid of. And so I pitched the idea to Tom, and Tom was all for it. And it ended up taking up like 8 years of my life. So, but the other thing too that I pitched to Tom was that I'm like, you watch so many documentaries about people or filmmakers or musicians or whatever, and it starts out, it's like, and you're like, oh, well, I was born, and then I was awesome, and then I did this awesome thing, and then I got married, and then I did this other awesome thing, and then that's it, the end. And you're like, well, what the fuck? Like, I didn't learn anything about the person. I'm like, you just talked about your career highlights, and that's not what I wanted to do with Tom.
Like a resume.
Right. They're usually like, they're just these glorified resumes and stuff. And, especially like when I found out that Tom was a single parent for years, and I'm like, there's so many, like, I mean, you can turn on Lifetime any time of the day, and there's like some movie about a single mother. It's like, no disrespect to single mothers,
Right.
We love you. Thank you all. But there's not a lot of single dad stories out there. So that was the other thing that really intrigued me, is that I'm like, here's this guy, and he's doing all this shit, and then he's also making sure that his daughter is getting up and going to school in the morning. And so that was the angle when I sat Tom down and pitched him the idea of doing the film. I told him, I was like, I don't really want to tell the story about the guy who threw a bunch of fake blood all over the Monroeville Mall. I want to tell the story about the guy who did that and then was home in time to make sure that his daughter was up and ready for school. That's the story that intrigues me. And then, making sure that is having to make that life-changing choice of the fact that it's like, do I keep pursuing my career? Or do I put it on hold so my kid doesn't end up a fuck up like so many other Hollywood kids? So I don't want my kid ended up raised on sets or raised by nannies or, end up in rehab by the time she's 13 or, all this other shit, all the other stigmas that, you always hear about, like child actors or, kids of famous people end up with, being raised by like 6 nannies and all this other jazz. So, I'm like, for Tom to do that and put everything on hold to raise Leah is so commendable and so admirable. And I'm like, I don't think there's a lot of people that would be willing to do that.
Yeah, especially in his position with the some of the opportunities he had at the time.
Well, it all happened right after Dusk Till Dawn too. So
yeah.
I couldn't imagine, like, here's somebody who's busted their ass for 30 years to finally get a breakout role as an actor, and and he gets his breakout role, and then it's like, well, shit, I gotta be a dad first.
Yeah.
Well, that's so fucking heartwarming and amazing. And I'm like, like, I know so many people's parents that like would not do that for them.
Exactly.
No, absolutely not. And the fact that you bring that to life in your film was just a hallmark of how great of a documentary it is. And I know it's, it may sound, we're friends, but I honestly thought that the second I saw it, I said, you nailed it. You showed him in a light, you didn't take away who he was. You highlighted his work, but that was just his work. And
yeah, but you know what, man, I didn't really do shit. All I did was point a camera at Tom and let Tom show the world how amazing he is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you created something from nothing. So there you go.
Well, you gave him the opportunity to. But yeah, I got to say, I was very refreshed. And I actually watched it before I met you. It came out right before, I think, last year. Last year feels like 20 years ago. But yeah, no, I watched it in
2019.
Oh, yeah, 2019. Can we go back there? But yeah, no, I had watched it not too long before I met you. And I remember being very refreshed. I didn't know anything about you or anything about anything. And it's like, okay, it's just going to be another, like, resume, which is fine. I'm like, I want to watch that. But no, I was very refreshed. I think you did a great job. And then I met you on New Year's and I was like, oh, okay. I got a face to the name now. Yeah. And I'm very not impressed. No, I'm just kidding. No, but here we are. No, I'm very impressed. So yeah, I mean, should we maybe get into what you're doing now?
Sure.
So 2020 happened.
Yeah, 2020 did fucking happen.
In a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you ended up kind of, well, I mean, you'll tell the story, but 2020 kind of helped slingshot your studio.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, we were actually going to move into the studio space in May. We'll rewind to about January of 2020.
Yeah, what led up to this?
Yeah, so before the world stopped, Tom and I were planning on doing a big, huge project for WrestleMania. As one of our, as you guys know, one of our big clients is WWE. Tom and I have been blessed with being a part of WWE for the last, I think Tom probably, I think this was like the 10th WrestleMania in a row that Tom's been involved with in some way, shape, or form.
A decade, yeah. Believe it or not.
Almost. Damn near, yeah. So anyways, we, Tom and I went to a big corporate meeting in January out at, in Connecticut with WWE. We talked about ideas for this and that and all this stuff. And so we were going to do all this stuff for WrestleMania. So we were like, cool, great. We got this job. We don't have to go look for anything else. We'll just, just kind of prep all through February and March.
No big deal. March right into 2020.
Yeah.
Confidence.
And I was like, oh, so then once we do this, we'll have enough money to move, we'll take this and I'll move into the studio. Cause, no, it's funny. I always joke with Tom about how like a Godfather 3'd his ass. Like he was like pretty much retired from special effects, and then I pulled him back in. It's like, you thought you were out, I got you. So
well,
but that's also why I wanted to open a studio, was because I wanted, I'm like, Tom has done so much for me. Literally, if it wasn't for Tom, I wouldn't have a house or anything. So I really wanted to open a shop because it was just inevitable. We were running out of space, we were running out of room. We were doing stuff at Tom's little private studio, and we were working in my basement and everything, kind of keeping it that old school kind of guerrilla tactics. And I'm like, we're getting too much work, Tom. We can't do this. And I'm like, everything will go into my name. We'll start the studio together. Everything like this, the lease will be in my name. The company will be in my name. The fucking light bill will be in my name. I'll take care of everything. So that way you get the best of both worlds. You can come and you can be involved with effects. Because I always love to fuck with Tom. Like Tom never is like, he's like, oh, I don't want to do stuff. And then I'll like leave him some clay. And then I'll come back 20 minutes later and there's like the most fucking beautiful sculpture ever. So I'm just
just can't help himself.
Yeah, no, it's that total like old Western cliche where it's like, I'm retired, I'm a farmer now, and then you give him a 6-shooter and he goes and like kills like 25 people in 2 seconds.
That's awesome. He's teaching the young gunfighter.
We were supposed to do all this stuff for WrestleMania, and then the world ended, or got put on pause. So overnight, it was like, shit, we have no work coming in. I have no idea what we're gonna do. Luckily, I got to go be involved with the part of the filming of WrestleMania. So we went and shot that, came back, didn't really know what was going on, wasn't going around Tom because, March, April, nobody really knew anything about anything. So they were just, everybody was just told to sit home and do fuck all. So, yeah, and you know what it was? I was talking to my sister one day, and she was telling me about how she tried to take my nieces, who were, I think they're like 12 and 10 or something, to the store, and they had to wear masks, and my one niece freaked out. Like she couldn't comprehend that like the world had changed that fast overnight, and that now people wear masks, and you can't be around each other and everything, and it's like that's a lot for a kid to take in. Mm-hmm. And I had some old rejected skeleton masks for like a job we did, and so I took them and I painted them like pink and purple, like girly colors, for my 2 nieces, and glued some filters in and sent them to them. And I was like, so look there, now if we got to go to the store, we can just, it'll be like trick or treat. It'll be like Halloween. We can, let's try to have some fun out of this horrible situation. And so I did that. And then like, I think I had like a broken hockey mask in my studio, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll cut this up and I'll take it over to Tom because I haven't seen Tom in weeks and everything else. So I just kind of did that and thought it was funny. Tom took, we took a picture of it, threw it up on his Instagram as a joke. And I think like within 24 hours, it got like 30,000 hits. And Tom said he woke up the next day to like 400 messages from people on where they could, wondering where they could get it. And like Scott Ian from Anthrax called me and was like, hey man, I want a mask. And I was like, sure, Scott Ian of Anthrax, let me figure this out.
Right. Yes.
And so yeah, again, and I'm like, oh, well, and like I hadn't worked, and by the time we came up with all this, I don't think my wife and I had worked in a month. We were kind of sketching about bills, just like every other American or anybody else in the world. And so like I took my last like $75 and bought like a little bit of silicone to make a little mold. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, if we can still like, if I, like we'll figure it out. I don't want to gouge people. We'll do them cheap, or, let's figure out how much, cost compared to labor. And so we came up with the price, and I was like, yeah, if we sell like, if I could sell 6 of these, that'll be enough money for like groceries and, the electric bill or something we can figure out later. And I can't remember how many we sold like our first day. Like, I think it was like a couple hundred, got a couple hundred orders like the very first day. So it was just insane. And it just never stopped. And, again, I think, and so we started trying to do everything we could. I had to learn how to build a business overnight. I'm so used to just kind of like working for one client and making sure that one client's satisfied, to going from having hundreds of clients and making sure hundreds of people are satisfied. So that was a big change.
Yeah, that's difficult.
And then we realized how many people were getting orders from, and this and that. And, and again, I'm like, I think it's just, I'm an artist. I'm my own worst critic. I hate everything I do. I'm like, it could be better. It sucks. I'm like, Piece of shit, why am I still alive?
Oh,
Yep, I understand.
Yeah, the whole artist mindset that we get. So when people started contacting us about how they can get them, I'm like, oh, okay. And also, I'm sure you guys have gotten this too, or I can't tell you how many times like people have been like, oh, I got this script, or I want you to come and work on this movie, or, like come and audition. We really like your audition and we'll get back to you. And then you never hear anything from them. So I kind of thought that was just like a lot of people maybe like blowing smoke up my ass. Mm-hmm. And then like my wife was, helping me run all the business stuff. And she's like, do you realize you've gotten this many orders? And I'm like, wait, what?
Like actual orders, people actually want these.
So,
yeah.
I mean, and it was just, again, and like I made one, just kind of slapped it together. Again, I've had to learn so many things on the fly in the last couple of months. We have it down to a science now, but originally it was trying to figure out where to get straps, where to get the buckles, where to get, what kind of paint we're going to use, this, that, whatever. And then we were running them out of resin, and then we realized that the resin wasn't as durable as we wanted them to be, and all this stuff. And then I was like, well, we had like 5 people working in our basement, and I'm like, well, this isn't very good for social distancing. We should do something. So that's when we moved into the studio, and it's when I hired this young lad because we needed more people. And we started renting a shop space with a fellow artist out of Pittsburgh, and he has a vacuum form machine, and it was Tom's idea. Tom was like, well, you can get plastic at the same thickness as the resin, and it's more durable, and it weighs like half a pound. It weighs almost a pound lighter. Why aren't you guys doing them out of this way? So we switched to those, and we're still just cranking them out. So again, like I feel so bad. I wish, like I try to apologize to everybody as much as possible for like we weren't trying to run everybody, I wasn't trying to run a scam. It wasn't like, I wasn't trying to run some like Nigerian prince thing. It was just like, what it was, complete honesty, was I had lack of self-esteem. I had no idea. And I didn't really have enough confidence in myself to think that something I was going to be selling would be so popular and so many people would want them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been my biggest hurdle to get over with this whole process. And, and the fact that people have waited so long for us is just so heartwarming. And then, just to see when people finally get it, and they take the time to write us back and be like, hey man, look, like I finally got my mask. This is so much better than I thought it was going to be. Like, thank you so much. Like this was so worth the wait. You guys are doing a great thing, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, dude, that's amazing. And I'm like,
this is a lot.
Of course, there's both sides.
Yes. There's always going to be.
Yeah, and then you got people like calling us, fucking scumbags on the line. But that's with everything. So I'm like, it's not just what the internet is. There's a bunch of people calling each other.
That's the hardest thing to get through with anything. And I know this is like, I'm going to go, it's not off topic, but even with our podcast doing this, for me, it's just like really scary putting our first episode out there. I'm like, I'm so scared people are going to actually see it. I'm going to hit post, and then I don't want to look at social media for like 2 days. I don't want to, but yeah, it's hard. I mean, like the more people interested in something, you're also going to have people come up that are going to talk shit and not be happy. But those type of people, they're never going to be happy with anything.
I've done I've had my dick kicked in so many times through the internet on projects. I mean, and I'm like, I get it. And I know the fans want to have an opinion, but at the end of the day, I'm like, you're, no disrespect, but you're not the one that hired us. And this isn't what you like the people that hired us and the people that wanted it are happy with our work. Yeah. So that's kind of, I don't say that's all that matters, but that's kind of all that matters. Cause I'm like, that's just what it is. I'm like, if someone hires you to paint their bathroom purple, it's like, that's what they asked you to do. So yeah, I'm going to paint your bathroom purple. I'm sorry that you think it's a hideous color. That's what they wanted.
Right. Yeah. People wanted chartreuse, but they didn't pay you. And they're at the end of the day, it's art, but it's still, paying the bills, and you have to adhere to what the client wants.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, and that's just, I mean, I've had people try to do that, the opposite too, where they've tried to like get creative and stuff on jobs, and it's just like, that's not.
We don't want that.
I had one time we had this. I won't name any names or anything, but
Don't bury her or him.
yeah,
They.
we got a job offer to make these skull masks, like full head skull masks, and they're like, well, we got, so like planning it out, I was like, all right, we have like 24 hours to sculpt this. Like, so I hired this person, was like, can you sculpt this generic Don Post Halloween 3 looking skull mask, and we need it by tomorrow morning. And they were like, yeah, absolutely, sure, no problem. I go to their house the next morning to pick it up, and it is like something out of like Guillermo del Toro's Nightmares. Like, it was like this big elaborate knotwork thing, and I'm like, it looks beautiful, but it's not what we needed at all. So it was one of the only times I've ever like had to go back to a client and been like, we can't do what you asked us to do, or we need some more time. So
I just needed a chicken sandwich, and you made chicken a la king.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need a chicken sandwich.
No, it wasn't even, dude, I don't even know what it was. It was like chicken. It was like chicken cordon bleu, and all you had to do was like a fucking 10-piece spicy nugget from Wendy's.
So, sorry, what were you gonna say, Will?
Oh, I was just saying I can attest firsthand, working alongside Jason. The funny thing is, when I got laid off from my job at the bookstore, I was like, oh, maybe I
What
saw.
bookstore was that, Will?
I'm not going to name any names. But when I got laid off,
it was, no, I'm just kidding.
The bookstore was now. I just don't want to give them money for your promotion. So when I got laid off, I saw you had posted online that, oh, I'm moving into a studio, and I'm like, well, I imagine you're moving all this fucking heavy machinery and stuff. So I was like, well, maybe he'll toss me a few bucks. So I just texted you. I was like, hey, do you need help moving in? And you're like, give me a couple days. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe he's not ready to move yet. And then the next thing I know, he's like, all right. And I meet him, and he's like, okay, I need you to make straps. And everything was already moved in. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what he's going to have me do. And he's like, I need you to make straps. And there's like this whole production line. And this is before you guys switched over to vacuum forming. And James Savini was there. He was showing me, and I was just he's like, can you make straps? I'm like, absolutely. Because at this point I'd sat home for 3 months, and I was just happy to be on the team. And you showed me how to, you taught me some stuff pouring molds, but then we realized pouring molds for this, for the hockey mask wasn't the most effective way. So then we switched to vacuum forming and kind of learned together. And I got to say, there were mistakes. I made tons of mistakes, and, still do from time to time, not as many, but it's just like, to say your patience. So that's another thing. So people listening to this that have ordered the mask, and you have to understand we're learning this as we go. And yes, it's Tom Savini and Jason Baker, but they're teaching us how to do this. They're employing new and students from the school, and then people like me who I've worked in machine shops. I can paint, I can do this, but I'm also learning the artistry of it. So I really appreciate you for taking me under your wing and just saying, like, it has been a learning process. And I think that the studio itself's finally hitting its stride.
Oh, well, thanks, man. No, dude, this wasn't a master plan to get rich or anything like that. It was really just like, maybe I could make a few bucks, and, I could buy my wife a box of name brand cereal.
And were you successful?
Yeah, a little
Did she
bit.
get her name brand cereal?
What name brand cereal does she eat?
Mandy?
Yeah.
Mandy's getting that like good healthy shit. That's probably why like she's gorgeous.
So you need to
you
need to sell those masks to pay for that organic that organic stuff.
Yeah,
you become accustomed to that organic, that good
$7 boxes.
Yeah. The Cascade Farms.
Magic Spoon, I heard, and actually they're sponsors. So if you need to Magic Spoon, if you want to sponsor Callosum Studios or Signal from Pittsburgh, hit us up.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't think you mentioned the name of your studio.
Yeah, Callosum Studio.
Yes, Callosum. So I was like trying to figure out how to say it the other night.
I went really pretentious on the name.
How'd you decide on that? Where'd that come from?
The corpus callosum is the nerve endings that connect the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain. First off, my favorite monster is Frankenstein, and the entire catalyst of Frankenstein is the brain, and all that stuff. But people have always told me it's like, to be successful, you got to use both sides of your brain. So the only way you can do that is through your corpus callosum. So that was sort of my mindset, is I want to be artistic as well and good at business. So
I
like
think
it.
you're doing a bang up job. I also, yeah, that was another thing I was surprised when we got working and I got to know you even better, that you said you had grown up essentially with your father, like being on the job site. So you had taken, I don't want to say real world skills to, you know, talk shit on special effects, because that is real world, but a lot of it is artistry. But you took your practical skills from working on job sites and applied them with your artistry. And that to me is the most amazing thing I've seen, like the way you take every day. Well, you know, I can hang drywall, so how can I use that, you know, how can I use that on a movie set? Or I can pour concrete, how can I use that on a movie set, or in an artistic way? So I was kind of blown away how you can kind of co-op and apply those skills into like an artistic sense.
well, that's, I mean, one of the things that Tom always says is the more you do, the more you get to do. So, you know, I want to learn about everything. And but no, I always joke about how it's funny that like I spent $40,000 to go to college because I was sick of going to Lowe's every morning with my dad, and now I go to Lowe's every morning for myself, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
You just can't get away from Lowe's.
Yeah, but no, man. I mean, again, back to what we were talking about the mask situation and stuff. You know, like again, we didn't start this to, you know, I didn't want to be like a warmonger or a profiteer or anything. And I love the fact that we've gotten to give back to you guys, to have you, Sarah, Gary, John, Bill, Kaylee, you know, Aaron, Andy, James, fucking Kendra, Lisa, you know, everybody that's been working for us and working with, you know, Radu, Sean, everybody who's come in and helped us in one way, shape, or form, or, you know, worked a little bit here and there and everything. And it's such a good feeling because everybody that we've hired, besides Gary, fuck him. But
we love you, Gary.
I love Gary. Gary, you're awesome. But you know, everybody was either like you know, someone I've worked with before on other projects, or, you know, or been a close friend. So to me, that's been the big payoff, is that I've gotten to like help people who I care and love about during this fucking weird ass economic hardship. So that's been the big payoff to me, is that I'm like, none of my friends have had to starve, or no, not all of them, but, you know, I've been able to help out people and give them jobs. You know, we've had a few people come in that were like really hurting and be like, dude, just come and work for a day, we'll pay you. You know, or like, you know, or we've been getting interns in from the school, and, you know, being able to pay them, because I know how like broke it is when, you know, I remember how broke I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
You know, fuck, I was broke way after college too. So I'm like, you know, who am I to like ask somebody to come and work for me for free? You know, I'm like, I can't sleep with myself if I ask somebody to come in, do a bunch of work, and then I paid them in a fucking t-shirt. So, which I've heard so many shops do before. You know, I just
no, that's very respectable.
Well, I want to give back, you know, and I'm so grateful for our client base, you know, whether it be everybody who's been ordering masks, WWE, Slipknot, Misfits, all the wonderful, amazing people we've got to work for and work with over the years. I'm just so beyond grateful that, you know, a lot of our clients, you know, we have returning relationships with them, and that just makes me feel really good. So.
Well, you brought it up before, and I'm a huge wrestling fan, so much that you bust my balls about it sometimes, but I appreciate that. But how is it for you working with WWE? Because it seems now more so, especially, I don't think Tom travels as much down there, but it seems they call on you quite a bit. And how is it with the guys and your relationship, and currently how's that
Tom
going?
and you know, I'm like, I feel comfortable saying that we've become WWE's go-to effects company. I'm very proud of that fact. I've busted my ass to have that, because it's, you know, it's WWE. You know, everybody that we've got to work with, it's been amazing. You know, they're so supportive and respectful, and, you know, and it's really interesting how many people, you know, it's so funny because like I'll talk to so many of the wrestlers. They're like, oh, I wanted to be an effects artist, you know, when I was a kid, and I ended up becoming a wrestler. And I'm like, that's so funny, because I thought about, you know, when I was a kid, all I wanted to be was a wrestler, and then I ended up so I didn't really ever I think until like about age 8, I wanted to be a professional wrestler. You know, I had a younger brother, so like that was kind of like I was like, well, if I could just get paid to like body slam other people like I do my little brother, and then I'm set. So sorry, Will, what were you saying?
Oh, no, you're fine. I said I tried it for a little bit. Legitimately, I was trained by a guy who was trained by Dangerous Danny Davis, the wrestling referee, if you remember him. It made me respect wrestling. It switched me from being quote unquote Mark to like really respecting and liking wrestling in a different way, like appreciating like the work rate. And that goes along with special effects. It's like I like when I watch a movie, I can be like, they really put their all into this. Once you peek behind the curtain, it's kind of hard to lose yourself in the movie, or wrestling or anything like that. I think you could attest to that. And then when something like that does that, it really, is miles above. And I feel that way with Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, that you worked on. Since I've been a lifelong fan, I was like, I just don't get the feeling. But once I saw you help reboot with that, especially with Firefly Funhouse and The Fiend, it like gave me the old feels. And I really commend you for that. I know it was a team effort, but for what you did do that, and I know you did a lot. If you want to elaborate on that.
Oh man, well, I didn't do nearly as much as Bray and writer Nick and all those guys. I just got to come and I got to bring my potato salad to the barbecue. That's
But no, it was definitely cool. And
no, man, it was a blast. It was great. It was so much fun, and it still is. We're still always working on stuff and spitball. I was just talking to Bray and Nick and them today about some potential ideas and stuff. And yeah, I was a wrestling fan when I was a kid. I'm looking down the barrel of 40, so I grew up with like the golden age or whatever they want to call it, the TV age with Hogan and Warrior and those guys. And then kind of fell out, and starting to work with them and working with Tom again has kind of like re-sparked my love for wrestling, and I, instead of a love, I now have a respect for it, something I didn't have before. I like when I was a kid, I was like, oh cool, like superhero guy punching superhero guy, like that's kind of like how I thought about wrestling. And now now I understand like what these guys go through in their lives and everything, and I just have like the utmost respect for them. And there's no way in fucking hell I could do what they do. I've gone on like 1-2 day trips with like a few of the guys and stuff, and it's not for me. I'm good. So but that's the thing I love is I love seeing the fans get excited about the stuff that we did the way that I did when I was a kid. That gives me a really cool feeling. The fact that it's, and the fact that Tom's kind of allowed me to take the reins and run with them. And, and of course I'd like, it's so funny because Tom's like, oh no, you go do it. You're good. And I'm like, fuck you. You're coming with me. Like, let's go do it.
Right.
He's like, all right, let's go. So I love having Tom involved because it's fucking Tom Savini. Why would I not want to have him around?
Right.
So, but again, I'm like, I'm not going to make, I'm not going to make him do, fly a fucking red eye out to Salt Lake City in the middle of a snowstorm to go deliver something. That's, that's what I'm for.
Well, he leaves those ones to you, right?
Yeah. So it's, but I'm like, but anytime we get we'll get a call from creative or one of the wrestlers and stuff, I'll tell Tom about it. And he's always just like spitballing ideas or, telling me that how we should do it or what he thinks we should do and this and that and everything. And, I love keeping Tom involved because it's Tom, and I think he enjoys, I try to give Tom the best of both worlds to where like he gets to come in, be involved, give his 2 cents, but yet, he doesn't have to be the one, he doesn't have to push the broom at the end of the night. He's not the one that's got to make sure that that the rent check got out. I'm like, Tom's paid his dues. He's going to be 74 here in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, I don't ever want to get in the way of him. I'm sure Tom has made so many sacrifices in his life. And I'm like, you're not going to miss any more birthday parties or, dance recitals or whatever anymore. You can leave whenever the fuck you want. And that's kind of what I love about our relationship and our, not like our personal and my working relationship with Tom. So
sounds like the perfect combination at this point,
Yeah.
I think that's what everybody would love, to like be successful in their field. And then when you get to a certain age, whatever age that is, who knows, to be lucky enough to be able to still do a little bit of that without having to do all the background work that you spent so many years grinding out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, I think a lot of people, they're just like, they don't realize like how tedious a lot of effect stuff is and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, there's a lot of standing around waiting and making sure stuff dries. And you can't just walk away and then come back and hope that it dries. You kind of got to watch it and make sure that things happen.
I think that's what put me off of like practical special effects, because that's what I wanted to do when I was younger. That was my original inspiration. I'm like, I'm going that direction, that and movies and film and stuff like that. And as I got older and experimented with things, I'm like, okay, that's not for me. I can't sit there and focus like that. But no, I'm also not good with my hands. I can't sculpt. I can't do anything like that. So I kind of found my strengths and ended up going more on the digital side. But I mean, it is the original inspiration for me to get into a creative field. So I definitely have some respect for you being able to do that.
Thank you.
Your resume like reads like a who's who. It's like my 13-year-old nerdgasm wet dream. Do you ever it's like you've worked with WWE. Did you ever imagine, like in your wildest dreams, just being a kid from Washington growing up and be like, oh, I'm gonna go work with Tom Savini and then I'm gonna hang with WWE? And humbling to me, the stuff that you've done and are still doing. You're not done working with Slipknot. And yes, to you, I know it might be a job. And you mentioned, when you look back at your resume, it's insane, like the people you've worked with and that respect you and you've done great work for. And I just, that's when I first met you, I was like, God, this guy, because people like that have an ego sometimes. Like, you're like, I've worked with this person and I've toured with the Misfits and I've done this and I've done that, but you're not like that at all. If anything, it's the opposite. It's like, no, dude, you've done this. Like, it feels like, I know you're not done, but it's like, you look at everything you've already accomplished and you didn't really have a leg up. It was all through fucking grinding and your hard work. So,
I mean, it's all because of Tom, man. I can't. Yeah. I don't know. I just never wanted to wear a stupid ass colored shirt again and fucking use a time clock. Never wanted to ask anybody if they wanted fries with that, or if they were signed up for our fucking Super Savers Club, for any of the other bullshit that come along with like retail jobs. But no, man, I love what I do. I'm so blessed and I'm so grateful that I get to wake up every morning and I get to make monsters with one of the greatest effects artists in the history of cinema. I'm like, how fucking cool is that?
That I think
in a million years I would have never thought that. I mean, I remember, like, I was telling my wife the other day about, I think it was like my 6th grade teacher told me that she was what'd she say? Oh yeah, but I remember my 6th grade teacher telling me that I was probably gonna end up in prison.
Oh geez.
Oh no.
Well, you didn't, so great job.
No,
good job.
It's just Scooby a few times, but and in county jail one time for the lamest thing ever. So
can we go into it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so stupid. I was like 20 and I got a speeding ticket and let it lapse. And I knew I had court, but I kind of forgot which day it was. And I thought it was the next day. And it was actually that day. And I was living like 30 miles away from where I got my ticket. But my mom was living in that town. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just drive down, stay the night at my mom's, and I will go to court in the morning and take care of this ticket. And I missed my court date. So I had a warrant out for my arrest.
Bench warrant.
I got pulled over. So.
Wow.
And they're like, no, you have a warrant out for your arrest. I was like, what? So yeah, I had to spend the night in jail over a missed speeding ticket.
My God. That seems kind of like a waste of time.
Yeah, that's a good waste of taxpayer dollars.
It's a story though.
Yeah, pretty funny. It's like, of course, the one day I mixed my schedule up and end up in jail overnight for it. So
I bet you never miss a speeding ticket now, or even get them at this point. It's got to be the first thing you pay now, because shit, that's hilarious.
You only have to have that happen once, right?
Yeah.
No, I gotta be honest here. I think you sell yourself short a little bit because yes, Tom gave you these opportunities, but you didn't squander them, and you're the one getting called, and you're the one that he put the ball in the court. He didn't have to go and start a studio with you, and he didn't have to give you these opportunities. So your talent and your fucking drive and grind have got you here. So I mean,
Speaks for itself.
yes.
Yeah, says you guys.
Yeah, it was a breeze. Look at you.
I'm just lucky I don't have to work horrible jobs anymore. I've had some really, I did some really horrible jobs growing up.
What was one of the worst jobs you've ever done?
I was a night janitor at Walmart for almost a year. So scrubbing toilets at a Walmart at 3 o'clock in the morning will really make you reassess your life decisions.
I worked at a Staples for a little while, and for some reason, you'd be surprised how nasty the Staples bathrooms get.
Yeah. Women's bathrooms were always so much grosser than the men's.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Like this one guy, my buddy Sam and I would joke about it. We called it the oil change as our joke, was because we'd find food wrappers in the sanitary napkin dispensers in the women's bathroom, and we're like, who's eating and going to the bathroom at the same time?
I'd have no inside information on that.
No, I was like, how, like who's eating and like doing other stuff at the same time?
No, that's the last place you want to open anything and expose it.
It was bad.
Oh, Jesus.
And we at least every day we'd find at least one stolen pregnancy test.
Oh, right in the bath. Oh,
you're just like, oh, someone's future is ruined.
You find out in a Walmart bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about reassessing your life.
Bringing that one to your kids.
I found out.
That one was pretty bad. I worked at a super sketchy bar when I first moved here. That was really terrifying.
What were you doing at the bar?
I was a bartender. And then would work security.
Oh, okay.
But I would open, and so like you'd find all like the crazy stuff from the night before, and like I remember one night I found a loaded gun.
Holy shit.
Next morning in the women's bathroom.
Oh no.
I'm like, how hammered are you that like you pulled out your strap, laid it on the toilet, and forgot to grab it?
It's getting in the way of her Kit Kat bar.
Yeah.
Eating or taking a pregnancy test.
That was a fun call. That was a fun call to the police department, being like, I found this in the women's bathroom. They're like, in the women's bathroom.
Oh man, yeah. I have no explanations, no inside info on that. I don't know.
Do you take your gun into the bathroom, Brittany?
Always. I take it with me everywhere.
But you don't set it on the do you set it on the toilet paper dispenser next to you, or do you
I hold it at the door the whole time. So then when you get those nosy little shits that stick their eyeball, like you make eye contact, you can just point your gun at them. That's what really happens in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to digressing from the bathroom talk. How
are we bringing this back on track? I really went down the toilet.
Insert rim shot here.
But
so things that you got to play Frankenstein, I recall. This is insider information. You said you love Frankenstein, and you actually do. Was this one of your first major roles, like acting on stage? It
was community theater. I wouldn't really call it like a fucking
a role of a lifetime.
Yeah. Not like I wasn't like opening Broadway or anything. But, no, what it was it was like 2 years ago. There was no work going on, and I was kind of just getting antsy and stir crazy. And my wife's an actress, and she comes from like a theater background, and Tom comes from a theater background. So I have two like annoying ass theater kids in my life every day. It's like theater. Oh my god, theater. And so for years I've just heard about how amazing theater is, and I'm just like, shut up, go back to Denny's and smoke clove cigarettes and leave me alone. But, so they were just doing a local production of Frankenstein, and I was like, well, fuck it, let's go try it out. I don't know. I'm like, maybe I'll end up like in the chorus line or something. I don't know. if I'm lucky. And I went and I just auditioned, and they called me back, and I got cast as Frankenstein, and we ended up doing this huge thing. Every night we did a 4-hour makeup on me. I lost like 30 pounds to do it. I shaved my head completely bald. I let Tom shave my head. That was really funny because he's always talking about it. Tom's always like, I want to shave my head, but I don't think anyone would recognize me. And then like I couldn't, like he didn't think you'd get roles or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, you can shave my head. Shave for Frankenstein. So, and Sarah that works at our studio with us was our makeup artist every night. So yeah, for every day we do, it was about 4.5 hours. It was a full body makeup and covered in tattoos. So we'd have to do tattoo cover up and then do all the stitching and scars and makeup and prosthetics and contacts and teeth and everything.
Wow. And
then there was like an hour and a half every night of like scrubbing it down. But I loved it. It was so much fun. Theater's so different than anything I've ever done before because it's kind of like walking a tightrope with no net. So it's, like film, if you fuck up, you're just like, oh, cut, let's do it again.
Right.
But theater, it's like if you fuck up, it's like, well, shit. Now
how am I going to roll with this?
Yeah, it's like, what are we going to do? So no, it was a blast. It was fun. Like Tom actually helped us out with like some few stunts and gags and stuff like that. So it was really cool.
That's super cool. So
yeah,
it was
he taught me how to like choke a 9-year-old. So that was really fun.
Just keep that out of context. He was in jail once. Yeah. Watch out for this guy.
Well, no, it was like this like 10-year-old. It was supposed to be like Victor Frankenstein's little brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what it was like I would hold my hands out and the kid would do a chin up.
Okay.
And so it looked like from the stage it looked like I was choking him. And,
right.
Like, he weighed like 40 fucking pounds, so I could just like pick him up and I would shake him. So it looked like legit. He would like flop all. The kid loved it. Like I was trying to. Yeah, like I would like. He looked like I was turning him into a Pez dispenser or something. Like head would just like fly back. I felt so bad. You just like. I'd have to hold his mouth from giggling because like, it was so fun. So it was fun, man. It was a blast. So I'd definitely do theater again if I ever had the opportunity and schedule permitted.
Yeah.
That's what I was just going to ask you. It sounds like you had fun being on the opposite side, having, the makeup applied and actually being the talent, as you like to call it. But yeah,
I'm such a hypocrite. I don't like wearing prosthetics. Such a like dick thing to say. I'm like, I'll glue it on anyone else's face, but I'm like, I can't do it. So
that's why you're on this side.
Yeah,
most of the time.
You like to administer the pain, not to not be the recipient.
Well, I've always been behind the scenes. Will forced me into this podcast and made me
at gunpoint
come out of my shell. Yeah, at gunpoint. He stole my gun. No, no, I'm used to being behind the scenes. I can understand. It's been a little weird letting it out there, putting it, behind the camera person usually, but I'm getting used to it. I'm enjoying it.
And I just kind of got inspired from, honestly, you and Tom. I kind of, make something out of nothing. It's like, you're here, so try it. If you fail, learn from it and pick yourself up and dust it. So yeah, you've kind of inspired this podcast. So
yay!
We had to have you on.
I guess this is kind of like a side for fun question, but is there anything recently that you've watched, film, TV show, or specific special effect that has impressed you, or you kind of look at and say like, how the hell did they do that, and kind of backwards engineer?
Yeah, the new Invisible Man. I thought it looked dumb as fuck from the trailer. And then I remember like it came out and it got really good reviews, and I was like, huh. And then Tom has a very high bar when it comes to things like, so and he was like, dude, this movie's really good. You got to check it out. And I think I watched like not like a behind the scene. It was like an interview with like the filmmakers and stuff. And they were talking about how like a lot of the stuff they did was practical, and they did a lot of old in-camera tricks and stuff, which was really cool. And my wife and I watched it the other night, and I was fucking floored, and I've been kicking myself in the ass for not seeing it in the theaters.
Yeah.
like 2 weeks. I love the new take. I love the new, I love how the Invisible Man now is. I thought it was really good. I like that there's elements of like suspense and horror to it.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how they were smart with their camera shots and stuff. You could tell there's obviously like their budget obviously went to hiring the lead actress, who I don't remember her name. I know she's like Handmaid's Tale and stuff. I'm sorry, wonderful actress lady, if I'm forgetting her name. And and then all of course the CGI heavy stuff with the Invisible Man. But I'm like, I loved how they were smart. Like all of a sudden they would just cut to like a shot down the hallway, like halfway in a door, give that voyeuristic Hitchcockian approach to things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is such a good suspense builder and stuff like that. So I was really, really thoroughly impressed. So it gives me a lot of hope and a lot of excitement for like their new, whether like Blumhouse is doing like a new, like their own dark universe, or they're kind of like taking over that scrapped Universal idea, is essentially what I've heard. Do you know anything about that?
I've heard rumblings, especially mostly off the success of this. So I don't think I think the Mummy is just going to be its own thing, and I don't think they're going to acknowledge Tom Cruise the Mummy, from what I've heard. But they go back and forth because it is Tom Cruise. So I'm sure if they can reverse engineer
Just
a
get
way
Brendan
to
Fraser back.
Bring Brendan Fraser back. Elizabeth Moss is who you're thinking of. She was in Mad Men and is in The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's awesome. And I agree with you on the suspense. There's a spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but there's a moment, you and I were talking about this at work, where the Invisible Man's actually on, like, she's up in the attic and she hears a noise, and she finds his phone up there, and she turns around and like throws the paint over like him, and then you just see like portions of his body, and it's like your mind has to adjust. Like, you can be immersed in the film and seeing, like, can you imagine like that happening? Your mind would have to quickly adjust to what the fuck just happened, to rationalize what happened while you're in like that amount of danger. It's fucking like, that really freaked me out. I'm like, because it's such an unnatural.
It was weird. It was almost like hard to comprehend what you just saw.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was such a great jump scare.
Yeah.
I thought the original ones that I'd see, like, you knew it was coming, but like you didn't. To me, I figured he would be like downstairs and you'd see it. I didn't realize he would be like that fucking close in her face.
Right.
Yeah, that was so scary. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's things like that. It's things like that in movies. You don't have to always reinvent the wheel, but if you can, use the wheel in a different way, if you can take a established trope and kind of spin it around and make it cool, that's what I really get into as well.
Well, I love I just love the suspense building they did. That's my whole thing. Is I'm like, to me, like, effects should always kind of be like the dessert, the build up.
Yeah.
And I think so many people like depend on the dessert, where like, oh yeah, let's just throw a bunch of effects and blood and gore in here and it will sell, right? Yeah. And you're like, no, like, this movie's, I'm like, I don't care how many people's faces you chop up with a chainsaw. If it's boring and dull and there's not a lot of like build up or anything, it's not going to be any fun.
I agree. The best films, in my opinion, commit one way or the other. If you're going to be overtly over the top, you just have to go for it. Or if you're going to be serious, you should commit to that, and then, like you said, build the suspense. And I think a lot of it happens so much with movies, especially horror movies. You fall in the middle of the road and you don't really please either. You're just kind of bland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree. We've recently watched that too, and on your recommendation, actually, I said, well, because we were supposed to watch it before the world fell apart, and
then we were supposed to go, and on that night, like, we were on the way to Manor, and we got there and they're like, we're shutting the theater down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish we would have seen it in theaters, though. That would have been probably a little more intense, but it was incredible.
Yeah.
No, I can't wait to see what they do next with it. So
yeah, it'll be awesome. I guess I have one final question, and then we'll let you go, because I know you've worked all day. So obviously Callosum Studios, hopefully will go on and be very successful for all of us involved. including yourself and Mandy and all the artists. And what beyond that?
Shout out to Rachel for our customer service person. She's absolutely amazing.
Rachel is a doll. She answers everybody. She's answering your questions if you're listening to this and wondering as quick as she can.
She's trying to get to everybody. So
yeah, please.
We apologize that she's a person.
Yeah. And my final question is, it's a two-parter. What projects would you like to pursue in the future? Let's say the FX Studio keeps going. Is there something that you're chasing that you want to knock off your resume?
Yeah, I want to do like a 2-week sleep study. I want to see.
That's a legitimate project.
I really want to do. I want to sleep for 2 weeks and see what that's like. No, man. I mean, I love all of it. I love doing props, film, on set, off site, all of it. So I mean, anything that we can get, and I'm extremely grateful for.
So you just want to break up the monotony and keep growing in different avenues. It sounds like.
Just as long as I can keep working, which honestly, it never feels like work. That's the beauty of what I do, is I love what I do. So I never, even though there's mornings I wake up and I'm tired, but I'm like, that's just means I gotta drink an extra cup of coffee and get going. So, yeah. But I'm like, I never hate or dread waking up and having to go to work, because I don't ever feel like it's work.
Yeah, and once again, I can't express enough how thankful I am. You make us feel ownership.
Because I wouldn't be anywhere without you guys. I owe you guys everything. So.
Well, I owe you a lot for the opportunity, so we really appreciate it. And I'm going to toss it to Brittany. Final question, so we can let this poor man sleep.
So I can get up in 6 hours and go do another podcast at like 7 a.m.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, okay. We'll let you go in a minute here. Yeah, I guess we just want to know, is there anything else you'd like to plug? Final thoughts, things like that. Obviously, Callosum.
No, again, I'm so grateful for everyone who's like been a part of this whole mask thing and situation. And like, thank you guys so much again from the bottom of my heart for your patience and your support, all of your positive affirmations, everything, again, like I feel horrible, that we originally thought we could hit these deadlines and we couldn't. That's my own fault. I didn't realize we were getting so many orders, and I didn't realize that so many of you were so supportive, and that's my own fault. That's, if anyone's to blame, it's me. It's not the crew. It's not anybody else. All they've done is bust their ass every day, day in, day out. So again, thank you guys so much. We've got some really cool new projects and products that Tom's been working on. So we're really excited to have those up on the website relatively soon for you guys, and just stay tuned.
Awesome.
And we'll have a link to the website in our show info for you. So once that gets launched, we will add it to there. Final thing is, would you do a little plug for our show? Just say, this is Jason Baker and you're listening to Signals from Pittsburgh.
You're Jason Baker and I'm listening to Signals from Pittsburgh. Did I get that
right? Close enough.
No, hold on, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Jason Baker, and you are listening to Signals from Pittsburgh.